Expand on
It's ability-based, so I'm able to focus on the ones who need that extra help, and the ones who are already there, I'm able to push them even more.
Supporting, engaging, and challenging students is at the core of all work. Students are valued and respected for who they are, where they come from, and where they want to go. All students are capable of learning, regardless of socioeconomic status, ethnicity, and race. Students are the most important citizens in the school community. All students have a personal learning plan that is data-driven, monitored frequently, and fluid to the needs of individuals. Teachers and families spend time developing goals on the personalized learning plan, which become the tools to drive instruction. We believe in iterations, not failures.
It's based on the learner, so if you're, specifically targeting a certain skill for one student might not be the same for the other. Who are your artists? Who are your mathematicians? Who are your naturalist learners out there? You're always learning as a teacher, so you're always learning as what your students are interested in and what maybe they're not. And so how do I maybe change some of the things that I want to get the growth out of it?
when you give the children a voice, you empower them to speak up for themselves, and that is so important.
Instructional spaces are designed to foster multiple factors that include socio-emotional, cognitive, and physical development. Classrooms include multi-use spaces and tables, and multiple interactive play-based centers designed using Common Core and next-generation science standards. Each center is designed with specific learning objectives and are differentiated to meet the needs and interests of the learner.
They have their day planned out. They know exactly what's expected of them. So Centers keeps them focused and it keeps them learning in a focused way.
These are our choices. The candy choice bar is a bunch of things you can do after you do 3 to 4 must-dos.
As adults, we get to make choices all the time, every day, and kids don't usually get to do that. For them to make choices is really cool.
Choice boards not only allows the students, but allows me to zone in on what students are involved with and then extend that learning.
4 principles are used to orchestrate play within the environment. Taking on the student's view, teacher as the keen observer, seeing the meaning of ideas as they are constructed, and the teacher as the stage manager. Teachers design environments to be conducive to learning, ensuring a highly structured design that fosters student agency and sustained and thoughtful engagement. SNACS pioneered a paradigm shift in how American education is delivered. We transform mindsets from using tools and resources for compliance to continuous improvement with a focus on empowerment through personalized learning. All educators have common planning time to staff students, much like the process used to triage patients in the medical field. This process is used for all students to ensure growth over time and a trajectory toward college and career readiness.
I came to SNACS because I felt like at my old school I wasn't learning. When I came here, I didn't care about school that much, but within like the first quarter, after just the way that my teachers interacted with me, I started to actually really want to interact. Without choice in the classroom, you might be forced to do something that's either challenging, or if you want the challenge, then you're going to be able to have the opportunity to learn and expand with what you want to do. I want to be challenged. This school has challenged me a lot.
I think I've grown because I made more progress than I did at old school. I've been able to learn much more and study harder.
I think being on teacher tuition is good. That's why I like small schools, because there's less students for them to have to worry about.
I can be in my own type of realm kind of with education, and it's like my standards. It's not below where I learn things that I already know.
School is no longer defined merely as a physical place. Classrooms lined with rows of desks and a teacher who lectures in the front of the classroom.
They contribute to their success and their learning through these choices, but that's usually what they talk about. I got to choose this today. It's a big thing for them to be part of.
They're excited about it too. They light up when they talk about it. It's not just sitting and writing and they don't get up for hours. It's like, yay, I get to go do something, and they want to do it.
Them being able to set the goal for themselves for the next quarter, it gives them not only a say, but it gives us a peek into what their goals are going to be, because your children aren't always going to tell you everything.
I've seen a lot of accountability with my choice centers, how must-dos and can-dos, and students will understand when they need to complete a must-do. They'll actually go over to must-do before they go choose a can-do. So it's really created, I think, responsibility, and so it allows me to meet and have more individualized instruction during center time.
They can work at their own pace. They're only working with one other person or two, you know, in a very small group, and they can kind of dig in and get the learning that they might miss in the larger setting.
They're finding out that they have that control, and it's self-motivating and self-selecting too.
Let's empower our children to be the best students, leaders, and citizens they can be. Personalized learning creates contributors to a society that consistently moves onward and upward toward a bright and healthy future.
We love SNACS!
So that kind of gives you a look a little bit at the model of the instructional piece that you see in the classroom. When you visit our school, and I encourage any of you who are in the area to contact us because we love giving tours. Our teachers and students love to shine and to offer what they're doing. But when you walk in a classroom, you generally won't see a setting like this. You're going to see students interacting in centers and learning from each other, and you'll see expeditionary learning that we do. We have, when we're talking about global opportunities, we have expeditionary learning outward bound days and living history days where students, the older students are the leaders for the younger students and actually teach them the content that they've been learning in the classroom, and everybody studies in the classroom, and then we'll take it outdoors or bring the outdoors in.
I was just wondering, do you guys do a lot of whole group lessons, or is it just a little bit of whole group and primarily centers?
A little bit of whole group.
Okay.
So it's like power lessons. So we tell our instructional staff to really focus on what the whole group needs to hear and make it short and sweet, and we integrate video with that, and then so it's interaction with, because we have smart boards in every classroom, so it's interactions with the resources that we have online and leveraging our technology, and then they're off in centers, and we use choice boards in the classroom so that they all make decisions on where they're going to learn and how they're going to learn. So every classroom has they've named different things in the classroom, but they have must-dos and they have can-dos. And so the must-dos are the things that the teachers really want to make sure they get through each week. So there's usually some kind of assessment piece embedded with that, so that they have a takeaway, so that the teacher knows that they are getting what they're supposed to be getting out of that center. And so what we did a few years ago is a teacher was actually, a kindergarten teacher was getting her master's degree, and she said, well, can 5-year-olds do this? Can 5-year-olds really learn to make choices? Because we start this with 3 years old. And so she had 4 must-dos that they had to get to, or 5 must-dos within a week. And we found out that without any teacher intervention at all, once they've been trained in how to use this system, they could get to all 5 must-dos within that week's time frame with a 75% success rate. So what that means is, one, that frees the teacher's time up because students are engaged in centers throughout the classroom, and that teacher can see that they're working. So you have to multitask as a teacher, right? Because you're still responsible for what's happening in the classroom. But once you carefully articulate the design in the classroom so that every center is standards-based, then they're learning wherever they're working. They're just making decisions on how they're learning. And with 75% actually making the right decision at 5 years old, then that teacher can take that other 25% and coach them. How are you able to make your decisions? Because you start to learn about the learner. When you're learning about the learner, you can see, are they the procrastinator? Do they wait until the very last day, the very last minute to make their decisions to go to their must-dos? Or are they the person who does them all in the first day or two so that they can have the rest of the week free? Or are they the person who does it 1 per day so that they have free time each day, a little bit of free time each day, but a little bit of must-do time each day? And so it's really interesting because we can start to make decisions about our instruction based on the way a student is thinking about their education. And as you heard from our students there, they're empowered by this. And the parents, they're empowered by this. They see the difference in their children because now they're taking control of their education. And if we can instill that in them, maybe we're going to make an impact later on those students, maybe as they're going to college and career readiness. And with our 3rd graders that we interviewed, and they were featured in last night's video, not this video, but you saw them at the end raise their hand. I actually asked them all, how many kids are going to college? And they all instantly raised their hand. You know, and so that's that belief system that we're instilling in them. And we serve a very high at-risk population. So, you know, for us, that's pretty powerful to know that all of those students feel that way. Does that make sense?
And when the students are working with each other in the classroom, we had one student, a third grader actually, who gave the analogy. He's like, it's like Burning Man. What? He's like, well, it's like Burning Man. He's like, there you go, and you bring goods, and you trade them, and you barter them. So in our classrooms, that's what we're doing. We're trading knowledge. He says, we're trading math. I teach someone math, they teach me science, and it works out. And so
without the drugs.
Without the drugs, yes. There's no burning of the pills. So, we really embrace that. And then for our school community partnerships, we do have the community come in, and when we're doing our project-based learning and our students do projects that go out into the community, our family engagement, our families are expected to donate at least 10 hours per month in some capacity. That's also personalized because we don't want to force anyone to be there. So we do our family engagement where parents have expertise and knowledge areas and passions, and we try to tailor their family engagement towards what their expertise and interests are. And then all of our educators have personalized professional development opportunities, and then our leadership, when you're a charter school leader, you have to be able to think 5 steps ahead, 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, because if you don't follow that business cycle, then you're not going to exist. So you always have to be looking at what do you need to be doing next, what's the next thing. We were doing personalized learning 20 years ago, and that's a big thing that everybody's talking about. But thank you. Sorry, it was a little bit fragmented. But I hope the message.
Bree, I see that you have a 1-minute sign, not a 0-minute sign. So when I'm done, like, okay. So I have the unenviable task of having the last speaker on the last panel. How's your energy? You need to stretch, shake up a little bit, stand up. You okay? You're okay. You're okay. All right. So we had a wonderful setup. We have Mary giving the big picture, this potential collaboration with districts, nonprofits, charters. We have Jeff talking about a teacher, an inspirational teacher. How many of you want to be in his classroom? Like I do. And talking about when an individual teacher can go deeper and personalize in a classroom. And then we have Kimberly talking about a school that for 2 decades has been figuring out, without technology at first, really, how to give kids engagement and excitement, right? So you don't need technology. So now I'm trying to figure out in the 8 or 9 minutes I have left, what can be useful for all of you. Mary said I went to a lot of conferences. Yeah, I've been to a lot, but that's actually not what's important. I'm a high school English teacher by profession. Shakespeare, actually, so now I've turned you all off. And I've opened about 20 schools in 5 states, and I've helped through my Stanford class. I teach at the graduate school students on how to open schools. And so I've helped them open about 50 more. And so really, I know a lot of the challenges, and then I had the fortune of opening America's first fully blended schools. So if you've heard of the Flex model, I created Flex schools. And that was painful. Painful. And what surprised me is most of you are actually teachers or educators, not that many administrators, right? I mean, administrators are educators too, but how many of you are actually in the classroom? Okay. So that's a different approach. I've got slides that I'm going to kind of adjust. I want to know very quickly, Bree, if you can just take a minute or 2 of the question and answer time. Can I get, because I have no agenda other than to be useful for you. I mean, I can talk for hours. I don't need to. So I would like, from this side, a question or 2 now, and I'm going to adjust my presentation, if that's okay. That's okay, Mary? Just kind of teaching. Okay, so questions. And I'm going to just, I like 5 at a time, so I can kind of weave them into the talk. So anybody up here in front, any burning questions? I know I'm waking you up and putting you in. Pass? Okay. How about this this smiling row there? You have a question there? You smiling? Anybody? What do you want to know? You're here. Nothing? Over there, I want to know what I can answer to you guys. So, okay, no questions over here. Yes, sir. Thank you for starting it.
Sure, yeah, I would just love some insight on maybe how to find investors for opening up public partnership.
Yes, and by law, they're nonprofits. You can partner with for-profits, so donors, not investors. But yes, we can talk about that. Yes, you have a question now.
Who gave you the most pushback on integrating blended learning?
How much time do you have? Over there, up here in the front, sir.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you mentioned flex classroom.
Yes.
I'm not really familiar with that.
I'll talk about that. Great. That's one of my slides. That was a plant. Okay. Yes. Next row. Anybody back there trying to wake things up? Any? And if I can't answer them, I'll pass them on to our Q&A time with the other panelists. But I'm just trying. Yes, Mary.
What was your experience implementing Summit?
Summit, and that's one of the slides too. Great. How convenient. Anybody back there? Sure.
This problem-based learning approach for
Yeah.
older grades.
Yeah, I may let Kim take that later. I'll touch it a little bit. Okay, cool. That's 5 questions. There we go. Okay, so next slide. This is a little bit what Jeff and Kimberly and all of them were talking about is the world is changing fast. And how much have we already preached to the choir here? Are you already doing blended learning? Are you already doing personalized learning? Yes, shake your heads yes and yes. Shake your heads no. Okay, mostly yes. So I'm preaching to the choir here. I don't need to talk about that. Great. So basically, I go back a second here. The leaders of the future need to solve problems, whether it's environmental degradation, inequality, global instability. We got serious problems in this world, and if we as educators can't help the next generation solve them, we're in trouble. And the old model's not going to do it. Next slide, and I'm going to kind of go through this very quickly. One more click. Couldn't get all of them up there yet. Keep going right there. So I think you can read this. Basically, the traditional model is passive. That is not what you get at Kimberly's school. That is not what you get in Jeff's classroom. And I hope in your classrooms you don't have that. But that's how the factory model is set up. It's a conveyor belt from math class to history class to science class. And the time is fixed. It makes no sense. And students are mostly passive in most schools. Not the best ones. Okay, next one. What if, go ahead and click 4 times, it's all 4. We moved beyond this. I think I'm going to kind of skip to this slide. What if we actually worked on projects? What if we actually did field work? Next slide. This group already gets this. We don't need to talk about that. 3 more. It's a dynamic slide. Okay. So the model that I've been working on now for 10 years of blended and personalized learning really has 3 parts. And this is not the way. This is a way. This is Flex 2.0. Flex had linear courses online in a brick and mortar setting, which was radical, 10 years ago. And now it's too rigid because you may know half the course and I'm wasting your time. So now what I'm focusing on are 3 things. Radical personalization, and this is where I'm struggling being a district school at times, struggling being a charter school, and so I've been kind of working now for the last year or 2 in the independent school, the private school worlds, because we don't have to have seat time in the same way. And we don't have to test physics in a certain grade or science. So if your child is 3 years ahead, great, go for it. The state test doesn't hold you back. So radical personalization, and I won't spend too much time on it, basically eventually eliminates grade levels. There's no research that says all 14-year-olds should be at the same place. It eventually eliminates courses. There's no research that says you have to have a set course. If you know half the course, why should I waste your time in my course? Just master the rest of it. What that means for the architect, who's the architect in the room somewhere? That means we need different buildings, we need conference rooms, not classrooms, groups of 3 to 5, not 20. We need flex areas where we can focus. It changes everything, and this is going to be over the next 10, 20 years. And so if you have questions about the future, that's what I think a lot about. But in the present, it's the most efficient way to actually get the knowledge conveyed. Jeff used flipped classroom. There's lots of other techniques. The second one is expeditionary learning, which is kind of another way of saying what Kimberly does, which is engaging ways. And expeditionary learning, how many of you know EL? Some of you? Is basically trying to do real world problems. We're at Tahoe. We focus on water quality in Tahoe, or the drought, or too much snow. All these impacts on pesticides and things. And then the third one is not required at all, but it's one that I believe in, which is what really delivers success in students and solving real problems is character. And so we basically, and I'm just kind of joking, but we actually promise parents, I'm sorry, but your kids are going to cry in their school.
Yes.
We are not going to coddle them. We are going to be pushing them up mountains. They call it, Duckworth calls it grit. We call it constructive adversity, that kind of oxymoron together. We're going to push them up the mountain, and it's not going to be easy, and it's not intended to be easy. Because life isn't easy. At least not always. And so that's not a requirement. It's not one that I recommend. It's one that I believe in. And that 3 mixture works very well. I'll go to the next slide. Okay, this is not rocket science. But the question was, I think one of the questions was, so who's pushed back the most? Well, let me just count the ways. We got parents, we got students, we got teachers, we got politicians, we got authorizers, we got researchers, everybody. Any students in the room? Okay. I mean, high school students. We're all students. I meant like K-12. Okay. So the students really don't like some kinds of blended learning or personalized learning. They have to work. You can't hide in the back of the room and passively take the lecture and shake your head. I'm like, I'm sorry, you haven't signed on to the math problems for 3 days. You haven't done anything. You can't coast in these kind of schools. Projects kind of uncover a lot of it, but you actually, if you have certain work you have to do, you can't coast. So students hate that. The ones who nailed the old system, they can't coast. Parents worry about college. It's fine in the K-8 setting. You start getting to high school, it's like, but is this going to get me to MIT or Stanford or Cal or wherever they want to go? Or UNR, into a certain program. Like, will this get us there? Teachers, they're wonderful as long as it's still in the classroom. The more it's in the classroom, the easier it is. The more we start changing schedules and get rid of schedules, and instead we say you got 100 kids, who are you going to teach them? When are you going to teach them? In what groups? Based on what data? I want teachers to be docs, surgeons. There's nothing wrong with nursing, but not nurses. They're specialists. Operate. Don't do quizzes. Don't do curriculum. Teach. And so the hard work to me is all across the board. And there's war stories on each of them. I don't know where to go. So time will just say, those of you who are doing this, I think you just have to be in the long haul, and eventually someday you'll probably have gray hair like mine or little of it. And but it's worth it. Because we've got to create the schools of tomorrow. Next slide. Okay, Summit Learning. A few of you asked me to talk about it. Anybody in the room thinking about Summit Learning? Any of you doing it already? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay, Summit Learning is a charter school that started about 15 years ago in San Jose, California, and they were very traditional. And after seeing a lot of us do blended learning, about 8 or 10 years ago, they created one school and then 12 schools to really focus on radical blended learning. And personalization is a larger tool which includes personal project-based learning. It doesn't have to be technology. These guys use technology. Zuckerberg visited, he funded it, and now the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative is funding them, and they now have 200 charter and district schools partnering with them. It's free. And they provide the curriculum, they provide the assessments, and they provide the projects. And the teachers use that, and they look at the data to intervene. So the good news is, and so if you really want to be at the cutting edge, this is about, except for people like me, this is about as cutting edge as you can get. And the nice thing is it's free. It's not a fantastic platform. It's integrated, so it has everything you need from grading to everything, but it's a minimally viable one, MVP for those in the tech world. It's just not, and it's got good training. It's all for free. They give the teachers training in the spring and the summer. They do mentoring now. And what's nice is, for those of you who are really doing a good job, it's an open platform. So you load your own stuff, and then it spreads to 40,000 students. So if you believe in the larger state initiative, which is really wonderful, because any assessment you create, any project you create, any curriculum you create gets spread automatically on the platform, and they can use it because it's all open sourced and free.
And it also transcends grading levels, right? So it goes
It's 6 through 12. Yeah, they don't do that as much. They say they do that, but actually they don't do that, Mary. You have to get special permissions to have another grade. It's one of the problems with it. So the challenges is exactly what Mary just said. I find it way too rigid. I had an 8th grader that actually had mastered a quarter of physics. I wanted to take the physics assessments but not do the whole physics course. They said, no, is he taking the physics course or not? I'm like, I don't know, he mastered a third of the content. Is he taking the course? I don't want to give him a final grade. He's just mastered the content. So they're not good at that yet, and that's okay because they're dealing with a lot of different partners, and they're not necessarily dealing with the people at the very cutting edge. But it's fantastic. If you really want to push the envelope, they push the envelope, but they're not blowing it up.
Yet, maybe.
No, they really can't be too radical because they're serving hundreds of partners now, so they have to actually not go that fast. This is the main problem, and I told this to them, so I don't. Even if this is being recorded, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. Their curriculum, at least according to the teachers in my school, my current school, is not as good as they think it should be. And the response is, it gets better every year, so help us, we'll get better together. It's not in a closet, it's not in a box, it'll change, and if yours is better than mine, we'll use his. And there's grading systems, there's likes, and there's evaluations. Ditto on the assessments. I found the assessments just weren't robust enough and not valid enough. The project assessments, if you want a good rubric, it's free. Get the rubric for projects. It is fantastic. Developed by people at Stanford. Their project rubric is the best I've seen. Their content assessments, not up to snuff in my mind. Next slide. So that's any questions on subject? Pause right there. Okay, next slide. Yeah, I think you guys know this. Basically, the trends support everything we're doing, from widespread Wi-Fi to competency-based learnings to the factory model, getting out of date. Yeah, next one. Let's go to the next one. So this is an interesting one that I'm now spending about a third to half of my time. And if there's anyone interested in this, come talk to me afterwards. And I think I have a minute or two or more. How am I doing, Priya?
It's
okay,
all yours now.
Good. I don't know if you agree. But let me ask you this, would you agree that one trend is moving towards competency-based learning? Students moving at their own pace, whether you call it competency or mastery, and ideally, through personalization, we're trying to have each student go what they need and go at their own pace, right? The problem is, how do we know when they've actually mastered something? Well, I'm a teacher, I create a quiz, or I create an essay, or I create a test, right? But I don't know about you, I have a doctorate degree. I don't have a doctorate in psychometrics and assessments. So this is like medicine was 100 years ago when they were testing, do I use bloodletting or leeches? And one guy died and 3 lived, I'm doing bloodletting. There's no evidence, really. It's not a big enough end. And so I realized there's a massive hole in the ecosystem. I got a black hole there. That schools need free, this is my view, and I'd love your feedback afterwards, free, on-demand, valid, and reliable assessments to implement, whether it's personalized learning, whether it's competency-based learning, got it. And my thinking is that if you're a traditional teacher lecturing, you still want to know, did this lecture work or that lecture? If you're a flipped learning, you want to know, what do the kids know? I mean, you created, how much do you spend time, Jeff, on quizzes, creating quizzes and correcting? 10% of your time, 20% of your time?
Probably maybe 10 or less.
Okay, so that's 4 to 5 to 6 hours, 7 hours, depending on how many hours you work. Imagine that's gone, and instead you had Stanford, MIT, and Wested designed assessments with no accountability. This isn't punishing you, this is just a blood test so you know what your kids know. This is what I'm spending my next few years, I think, building. And I'm trying to find out if it's useful. So later on, tell me thumbs up, thumbs down, dumb idea. I'm not defensive. The one I'm working with is actually called MasterChat. They built an elegant platform. It's free, and they only have Chinese and K-5 math, and I want to put the entire K-12 spectrum on, and then give it to everybody free. Give it to Summit, give it to Nevada, give it to EIC, give it to for-profits. All I want is teachers to have the tools so they know what their kids know. And they're professionals, they want to create their own assessment, go ahead. This one just has to be tested by the experts to know, and there'll be different levels. There'll be multiple choice short answers and third-party graded essays and performance assessments. It can go as fancy as we want. Okay, next slide. I think I'm almost finished here. And this one just basically, I have this kind of, I don't know, any rock climbers. It can be pretty scary, but I didn't put this on there. One of my colleagues did. That was because it was too scary. Yeah. you need belay ropes, you need to work together, and I can talk about that, but I think that's what Mary is trying to get at with this collaboration statewide, is to basically have a safety net and a helper and supporter so we get all get up and down. I'll stop there.
Yes,
Thank
without
you. What's that?
Without.
Absolutely.
When we went through this and Mark showed me that last slide and I'm like, I don't know if anyone's going to want to join this journey if we're all about to fall off the ropes. So I threw that in. But I hope that this woke some curiosity and some interest in you. And if you can fill out your little papers with information about yourself, any remaining questions that you have. And EIC is, and I forgot to introduce Priya Alawat. She's my colleague partner as we're launching this Education Innovation Collaborative. Please contact the individuals and myself with any question. And if in the next few months we're thinking of launching a kind of a meeting of people who are interested in talking about how to do this going forward. So please let me know if you're interested. Yes. So where is that actually? I don't know. Is it back from the network? Anyone know where?
Where's the network? Where's the program? What's the next?
Where are the drinks?
Yeah,
the main
We can have
our pod in the big room.
And we can have some questions. Any
We'll
more
see you over
questions?
there. Oh, what?
Questions for the panelists. Any more questions for the panelists?
Oh, well, since we ran out of time, we'll take questions.
Up here. Come on.
Yeah, come up here if you have individual questions. Thank you.
Very nice to see you. I thought I saw you coming in here.
Where are we getting, are they putting together this information, the PowerPoints? Are they giving us a link, or have you heard anything about that? I don't know who.
Would you like the link?
Yes.
Maybe you could leave us an email? You see the website there. If you move on,
And then where is your school, Alex? Nice to meet you. Where is that? Awesome. Thank you so much.